Okay, let's get started. I don't know if everyone's met Tammy. Tammy's participated before in our art tours, which we did pre-COVID, and now they've turned into art drives, which for the foreseeable future, we're going to keep as arts drives. So, and Jacqueline, I think everybody knows Jacqueline. She's been in everything we've done before COVID. There we go. And this is Tammy's work. Tammy, do you want to describe it a little bit about the process too? Because I'm assuming you make all the rings individually and get them together.
I do, yeah. Mm-hmm. So I do silversmithing to create that. All of my work is in sterling silver. I get my sterling from the refinery in Markham, Umicore. So everything, I can try and keep prices more moderate that way. And that way I also have access to different types of wire. So this is made with round wire, and then I've hammered it down a bit to flatten the top. Mm-hmm. But I also have pieces that are made with square wire, rectangular wire. And from them also I can get sheets of sterling so I can cut out shapes. So that gives me a lot of versatility. It also keeps the prices down, although the prices have jumped 30%.
Oh yeah.
Which it's not surprising, I guess, but I wasn't quite expecting that. And I placed my regular order and all of a sudden you get your bill and it's like, oh dear.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this piece I call Bubbles because of all the circles. And what I've done is created a variety of circles. Each circle is soldered separately, and then arrange them into a pattern and then solder the pattern together. Then I've connected it to a chain, of course, for wearing. And that way I like the versatility of silver, and I've done this design a few times, and every time you make it, it's different because you use a different combination of circles. I also have, I'm not sure if it's here, but I think there is a piece that instead of circles, I've done it with different shapes. So leaves, teardrops, and it just sort of makes a nice statement piece on a, set against a tan or white or black background, whatever people are wearing. But it just sort of gives a bit of a statement piece because it's a bit larger than just a pendant.
So how large is it?
It's about 5 inches across.
Okay.
And about 2.5 inches to 3 inches deep.
Yeah, that is a good size. Yeah.
Yeah. So it sort of sits just, below the neckline, below the V of your neck. We just sort of sit at that place. And usually I put extenders on the back so that people have an option to make them longer or shorter, depending what you're wearing in the neckline. You might want it a little bit, half an inch different sort of thing. So instead of making a standard length of 18 inches on pieces like this, I usually put an extension so that they can hook anywhere into that extension and adjust the length.
Sure.
Makes it more versatile.
Yeah, that makes sense. Next piece.
I just finished making this one last night.
Wow.
Again. It's scrolls. I do this also in earrings and a necklace. The necklace, I actually use a larger one in the center and then these sort of going up the side. Again, this one's done with round wire. It's usually a 14 gauge. Then once I formed each circle is made from about 6 inches of sterling, and then, create the shape. Then it's hammered down. Then it's textured with the ball peen hammer, the other end of it. And then everything's polished up. And it's just all linked together with the joints, little loops at the end. So there's, no extra jump rings or anything else. So I think you can see at the top how it's just looped in together, making it quite secure. Yes. Yeah. So that's sort of a favorite shape that does well for me.
It looks a little complicated to get the shapes. I mean, they look all the same size relatively, and the swirly is all in the same place. Like, I don't imagine I could get.
And it's just a matter of starting in the same place with the same amount. And then, there's a lot of
Okay.
manipulation that goes on. Because the other thing that happens is once it's hammered, it splays out. So I
Yeah.
have to reshape it. And then I sort of put them beside each other, like, and on top of each other, and sort of try and get the shape so that they're similar. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I can see it might be a little tricky though.
Yeah, so it gives me a challenge.
Next one, please, Tanya.
Okay, this one's a similar idea, but this is the bangle cuff bracelet.
Yeah.
It's made out of 3 pieces that are then, so I've swirled the pieces. Again, this is done with round wire. It's a 12 gauge, so it's heavier because it's a cuff. It's a heavier gauge. So then once I've hammered it down and textured it, I file the edges so that I can get a smooth joint. So the 3 pieces are joined together, and then it has to be hammered to shape it. And every time you're working with metal, every time you're hammering it, etc., it becomes harder and harder, becomes work hardened, so that the bangle is actually quite secure. When I order my silver, I have them do it annealed, which means they heat it to a point where it becomes dead soft, because it's much easier to use. If I tried to do that out of hard, like a regular hardness of the silver, I wouldn't have any fingers left. So I have them anneal it. That way I can shape it more readily. And then it hardens as you work with it.
Wow.
So it's just 3 pieces joined together, soldered at the joints.
How long have you been working with the silver?
Probably, I started off with beads, and then sort of really loved how the silver, like I would often join the beads with silver, and I liked how I could manipulate the silver so easily and into so many different shapes, that probably about the last 10 years that I've been working more with just silver. Now I still put beads into things, and I'll have some pieces at the show that are sort of like long pieces that you can put over a top or whatever, and but I usually have some of my own components, joining them together, adding interest. So I use beads, but they're also just for interest, and sometimes people want color in things. Yeah.
Depends on the person. Yeah,
exactly.
Depends on how you feel that day.
Nice to have a variety. Yes.
Right, of course.
Yes.
Next piece, please.
Okay, this is what I was referring to, similar to the bubbles, but this time I've used rectangular wire that's about 1 millimeter by 0.5 millimeter thick, and shaped all the leaves first, and then arranged the leaves into a pattern. So it's done. It has a different look and feel to it because it's not flattened, round wire flattened. It's done with rectangular wire.
Right. Is it about the same size as that initial one, the bubbles?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And where do you get your chains? Do you make those chains yourself, or?
No.
Okay.
No, those chains would be impossible to make by yourself because there's a small length sort of thing. I get there's a supplier in Toronto downtown that I get all of my chains from, and because they have good quality things there. Yeah.
Right. Next, please.
This is a favorite of mine. It's called the knot. Obviously.
Yeah.
And it's made with just 1 piece of 14 gauge wire, round. And then I've manipulated, like, because I'm using it dead soft to start with, you do have to twist and pull and whatever, but I just tie it into a knot. And then, so you can see where it's still round in the center, because I can't hammer in there. But then I've hammered it sort of around the edge of the knot, and as it splays out to the ends. So it goes about 4 inches across, and then I've drilled holes on the end so that I can add chain. and from there.
Right, right.
So it's
Yeah,
just
that
very
must be
simple.
a little tricky, just tying the knot in the silver.
It is, and it's hard not to mar the silver a bit. So you're doing some sanding as well in there to make sure that any scuffs or any little, imperfections have been removed.
Mhm.
So, because you want it to be nice and shiny and smooth. Because sometimes to
Sure.
get that knot the way I want it, I've had to use the pliers, and I may have marred the silver a bit. So, yeah, you're doing a lot of sanding in there as well.
Mhm.
File
And
and
what
filing.
what do you use to sand the silver? Is it something special?
Well, I have a it's not a Dremel. What?
Is it like a little miniature thing?
I have sandpaper and those sort of hand tools, but
Yeah.
also my flex shaft. That's what I'm trying to think of. Brain dead here. I have a flex shaft, which is it's a motor that you then add different attachments to.
Okay.
And so, like, I can drill, I can polish, I can sand, file, depending on the end I put on it. If people are familiar with Dremels, similar
Yes.
idea, except
Okay.
this sort of hangs above me and then it comes down on a hose. You have the handpiece, and at the end of the handpiece, you put in your attachments.
Huh.
So you can do lots of different types of things.
Right,
with it.
right. It would be great to have a video of yourself doing that at some point. We'd love to have, I'm sure Hala would love to have that.
Yeah, I could ask my daughter to do that for me, perhaps at some point. I just hate being in pictures. So.
I know.
So I don't tend to think of doing things like that, but you're right. The process can be interesting.
Oh yeah, definitely interesting. I mean, and then they understand the value and the pricing somewhat,
Yes.
when they know what all's involved. It's not that simple. Even though the finished product may look fairly simple,
Yes.
but everything that goes into it, it's just step after step after step.
Yes. And even
Getting the silver in the first place, finding where the source is, getting it, and knowing what all the various types of silver, sizes of silver will do.
Exactly. And even in the soldering process, there's an awful lot, because once you've soldered something, it has to go into a pickle, which, first you have to treat it before you can solder it. Otherwise you'll get blackening that you can't get rid of.
Yeah.
So you have to treat it first with methyl alcohol, and you use flux so that the solder will run. Then you have to put it in pickle. I'm not even sure what it's called pickling. I'm not sure what that chemical is, but that takes sort of all the residue away. But now it sort of looks a little bit whitish. Now you have to polish everything up. So, any seams that you're not happy with, whatever, if you're going to sand anything, and then you have to start polishing. And polishing can be a process as well, that you're going from, like where I've had to file something down, I'm using you're going like from the harder, a rougher grit to a finer grit, and then actually polishing wheels that just sort of start to buff things up. So there's different, by the time I'm finished polishing a piece, I may have changed the end on my flex shaft 5 times.
Wow.
To get it from the rough to the very shiny.
Yes. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, you can't go sort of just from rough to brilliant and shiny. You have to do the steps along the way.
Yes, of course. Now, did you train somewhere, or is this all experience with manipulating it yourself?
A combination of things. When I became interested in it, I started taking whatever courses I could find. Probably started doing this in total about, maybe 20 years ago, started fooling around with this, just as a hobby. I took some classes then at the Oakville Art Society.
Oh, yes.
With a person there who was teaching silver. So sort of took all of her classes and learned some of the basics. Then Mohawk College had classes at that point. and I took their classes, but then they canceled all their classes. They
Oh.
don't do jewelry anymore.
Hmm.
So that sort of gave me the basics and the ideas of things. And then, of course, there's nowhere around here that I can take classes. But I did find a jeweler up in Waterdown, Joan Kirby at Waterdown Goldsmith, and she does workshops.
Okay.
And she does workshops for me, as well as she has open studio time where I can come in and use some of her larger pieces of equipment, like the silver cutters, disc cutters. I use the rolling mill that she has, because sometimes I like to put texture onto the metal.
Right.
So I can book studio time with her. And then when I have a question about something or want to, well, there's a technique called fold forming, where you actually put a fold in the a sheet of silver for design. I don't think I have anything here like that right now. Thought it looked really neat, but okay, I can learn from a video, but I'd rather be shown.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so I said, okay, Joan, can I do a class for me, please, on fold forming? So she's my sort of go-to person.
Great.
For anything else I need now.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's handy for sure.
Yes, very handy.
Next piece, please.
Okay. Again, this is done with rectangular wire. It's on that theme of the bubbles, and the previous one you saw, again, just teardrops now instead of the leaves or circles. And again, it works well as a statement piece. And here you can really see the rectangular wire more. So I like being able to use different types of wire into the designs. Makes it much more interesting, because it gives a different shadow, a different composition.
Okay, next. Yeah, this one is not too clear, but we certainly can get the idea of your shapes.
Yes, again, rectangular wire, but here I've hammered it. I've used I think it's 2 millimeter wide, and then I've hammered it for texture, joined them together, and then added the turquoise bead at the bottom.
Well, do you have that piece?
Yes, I do.
So will it be at the show?
In fact,
it would be nice to see the real piece.
Yes, I have it for the show.
Oh, good, because it'd be nice to see the real thing. Yeah.
Yes.
I
have that one.
But it's all silver.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's all sterling.
Do you ever use gold?
No.
No.
Gold, you've got a huge price.
Yeah.
I need a different market, basically. And it's, it really is different to manipulate it. To solder everything else is at different temperatures. So it'd be much more challenging to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I stick with just sterling. Yeah.
So, okay. Next piece, Tanya. Oh, you've added something here too.
Yeah. This one I've done a bezel setting, and it's a lapis. No, it's an agate stone. Sorry. I've done one with a lapis stone as well. But so it's just I've used the disc cutter to cut the disc of silver, textured it, and then applied the bezel setting to hold the stone.
So would you have started then with a sheet of silver?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I start with a sheet of silver, then I cut out discs in different shapes. I'll have a variety of shapes or a variety of circle things at the show. I use it a lot for earrings as well, for discs.
Yes. Yeah. They're always popular.
Yes. Yeah. I don't do a lot of settings just because they're so you have to be so precise.
Yeah.
You're just 1 millimeter off and that stone's not fitting. So it's a bit more of a challenge. I should do it more often so I get better at it. But every once in a while, it's just nice to set something like that.
Yeah, set that challenge for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Next piece.
This one I call the chevron, and it's done with square wire.
Right. Yeah.
So I've created each of the chevrons and then soldered them to the bar above. So this is, again, even in soldering, because if you're soldering a piece more than once, you have to go from different types of solder. There's easy, medium, and hard. I'd have to start with the medium, so the solder takes a little bit more heat to flow. And then, because eventually I have to use that piece now again, and it's being soldered, and use easy last because it takes the least amount of heat.
Right.
So the rest of it doesn't melt away.
Yeah.
So it's all those different processes that you really have to be aware of as you put these things together. And that's where the classes have been very helpful to me in the past. You know, just knowing that, okay, if I'm going to put, well, even all those statement pieces, the leaves, etc. When I do the leaves and the teardrops or the bubbles, I have to solder those with the medium solder so that they don't come apart when I'm putting them all together with the easy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. I was going to ask, and how do you recommend the silver's cared for?
Keep it in a plastic bag when you're not wearing it.
Okay.
And then if you find that it's not quite as shiny as it used to be, just use the buffing cloth or use the silver cleaner from the jeweler that you can dip it.
Okay.
One or the other. And sterling silver, you can polish forever. It's always going to be silver. Silver plate is a different thing. You can polish it about 3 times and then suddenly you have no silver left.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just put it in plastic.
So just because I think this is your last piece, do you want to mention where people can see your work?
Yes, my website is a twistofsilver.com.
Okay.
So my work is there. And then I have it in 2 stores in Hamilton.
Good.
One on Textures on Lock Street.
Oh, yes, I know that store.
Okay. And then on James Street, it's called Store on James. Very original title. There's a lot of pottery and she does takes in work from various artists again and sells it through her store. She's a potter herself, and she has a lovely store that's been sort of all reclaimed brick and everything, and on James Street in Hamilton. On
James Street North, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, if you know Hamilton at all and you like shoes, you know Miller's Shoes.
Yes.
Then it's right across from Miller's.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Because I haven't been anywhere for 2 years. I haven't been over there in a while, but that's one of my favorite places in Hamilton, is just to go up and down James Street North.
Yeah, there's a lot of nice little shops there now.
Yeah.
And restaurants as well.
Yes. I've eaten in a couple of the restaurants there. Yeah. That's my hometown, Hamilton.
Yeah, that's where I grew up as well.
Yeah. It's changed a lot since I was a little girl. A lot. Everywhere has changed a lot.
This is true.
So just say again that Tammy Warren and her jewelry is at twistofsilver.com.
Yes.
If you want to go take a look. And Tammy will be at the art show this weekend.